how's it going? My name is Gabby, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm gonna be reading Kayla's favorite books again. So, if you're new to my channel, you might not know, but Books and Lala, Kayla, is one of my favorite YouTubers. I've been watching her pretty much since the start of my channel, and around this time last year, I actually made a video reading her favorite books last year, and I said during that video that I would love to do this video again sometime in the future because Kayla is one of my favorite creators online. I'm always curious to see what her favorite books are, and we have so much in common with our taste most of the time. I feel like our tastes mostly align with like thrillers and literary fiction and some weird books because of Kayla, I've read some really strange books that I ended up really enjoying. Like in the video I did last year, I ended up reading Bunny by Mona Awad because of her, which ended up being one of my new favorite books. And then I also, a long time ago, I read House at the Bottom of a Lake because of Kayla, and that one's also one of my favorite strange books. So I can always rely on Kayla for the very strange and unique book recommendations. And so I thought now would be the perfect time to read some of her favorite books again, because when she posted her favorite books of 2020 video, I realized that I hadn't read over half of them. And so in this video today, I'm going to be reading 4 books from her favorites of 2020 video, and then also 1 book from her favorite books of 2019 video that I never got around to. So the first book that I'm gonna read for this video is one that I've been wanting to read for a very long time because it was on Kayla's favorites of 2019 video, and that is Dig by A.S. King.
So it's this dysfunctional family. It's so hard to talk about the actual plot because it's so weirdly written, but it's like 5 different teens without proper first names, all having coming of age storylines.
And all I really know going into this book is that it's a young adult contemporary novel with some magical weirdness in it. I've never read an A.S. King before, so this is going to be my first A.S. King experience. And yeah, I don't really know what to expect. I got the audiobook checked out from my library for this one, so we're just gonna give it a whirl. The next book I plan to read for this video is We Are Okay by Nina Lacour.
Nobody writes sad girls like Nina Lacour. We're following a character named Mila who has gone through it in life with her mother and her mother's boyfriend, and it is a look at trauma. And now that she's aged out of foster care, she gets an opportunity to live on this farm.
This is probably the only book out of this whole batch that I maybe would have picked up on my own, because I've read a Nina Lacour book previously that I enjoyed, and this one just sounds like it's really beautiful and really touching. It's a young adult contemporary that's kind of like more on the hard-hitting side, and that's all I really know going into it, but if it's Kayla's favorite, we're gonna read it. The next book that I'm reading for this video is actually going to be Split Tooth, and this is one that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to read for this video or not because I had it on hold at my library, and my hold actually came through in the middle of this vlog, so I was able to get to this one.
The writing is stunning, it's horrifying, it's haunting. It's a very uncomfortable and unsettling feeling reading this book. Kenya Tagaq is an incredible throat singer if you haven't checked out her work, and she narrates the audiobook, which is phenomenal.
But this one was a really unique reading experience because I had absolutely no idea what it was about going into it. I just saw that it was in Kayla's favorites of 2020 video and I added it to my TBR. The 4th book that I'm going to be reading for this video is A Lot's Away by Darcy Little Badger, and this is one that I had to add to my TBR because it was Kayla's #2 favorite book of 2020.
The themes are incredible. There's discussions of like classism and the justice system, and we have an ace main character, which is awesome rep. All of the little subtle magic that all of the characters and different like creatures have is so interesting and also subtle.
And this one is actually one that I'm super intrigued by because this one has an asexual main character, which is so unique. We love to see it. I never see that in books, so very happy about that. It just has like vampires and monsters, and it takes place in an America that's very similar to our own, but there's just more magic involved. I don't really know. I'm really excited about this one. And then the 5th and final book that I'm reading for this video is We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan Berry, because this was Kayla's #1 book of 2020.
This is one of the weirdest books I read this year. It's probably the funnest reading experience of the year. It's a book I had one of the strongest connections to this year. The references alone to 80s movies and music and TV shows just did something so great for me.
And literally all I knew going into this book is that it followed this group of girls in high school. There's like some witches involved, and there's like they're like playing on a sports team. and this is just kind of like a story about the team and the sport and the Salem witch trials. That's all I really needed to know about this book. I mean, it's Kayla's #1 book of the year. Like, this was gonna happen regardless. So usually when I do these kind of videos, I like to kind of rank the books in an order of what I think I'll enjoy the most, just as a little prediction, just to see if I can predict my own taste. Like, I don't know, I just find it very fun. So I feel like I'm gonna put Away in #1 position because I don't know why, there's just something about this book that really speaks to me, and this is the book that I've been wanting to read the most out of all of these books on this list. I've been putting this one off ever since I saw her favorites of 2020 video like 5 months ago, and I've been wanting to read it so badly ever since I watched it. And I just feel like this book is going to speak to me. Like, I can just tell that I'm going to love this. And I just really genuinely hope that I do. And I'm putting it in the #1 spot for that reason. And then in the #2 spot, I'm going to put We Ride Upon Sticks because the 80s and like witches and like a bunch of girls, like, say less. It sounds so much fun. I just really think that I'm gonna have a good time with this. And in the 3rd spot, I'm gonna put Watch Over Me by Nina Lacour because, as I said, this is an author that I've read before, so I'm somewhat familiar with her work and her writing, and I just think that I'm really gonna enjoy this. I hope it's like hard hitting. I hope I might, like, maybe I'll cry, like, I don't know. And then in the 4th position, I'm going to put Dig by A.S. King, not because I don't think that I'll enjoy it, but because this one is a little bit outside of my norm. Like, I don't know if I would have ever picked this book up on my own if it wasn't for this video, and I don't know what to expect going into this. And then in last place, we have Split Tooth, and the only reason why I'm putting this one in last place is because, again, I have no idea what it's about, what to expect going into this book. It's not that I don't think that I'll like it, I just have no idea what to expect. So yeah, those are all of my predictions, and I'm very excited to jump into this video and let's see where we end up. I just checked out the Dig audiobook from my library, so I think I'm going to start with that one. Good morning. So last night I actually decided to start Dig. I listened to the audiobook and I got up to 39% of the way through the audiobook last night, so I've been listening to it for a few hours, and this book is so interesting and so unique. Something that I thought was kind of difficult with just listening to the audiobook is that there's so many characters in this book. I actually pulled open my notes app on my phone and I started making notes about like who's who because I feel like I'm gonna get them all mixed up in my brain. But there's quite a lot of characters, and it's interesting because they go by names that are like unconventional. Like one of the main characters' names is Shoveler, like that's all we know him by, and then one of the girls just goes by the Freak, and that's like literally the only name we know her by. So it's kind of like unique. Like, I don't think I've ever read anything like this, but it's like, while it seems kind of like strange and weird, it's also like so beautifully written, and there's so many like themes of like this small town and their racism that it's like already talking about. There's also this one character, and the only name we know them by is Can I Help You, because they work in like a drive-through at like a fast food place, and they're like, the only thing you care about me anyways is the fact that I'm always trying to help you. And like, there's already so many underlying themes about how this small town and like the older generation in the small town is really racist. And there's just some like really deep conversations happening, like some of the characters talking about like what happens after we die and like what's the point of our existence and stuff like that, which is really interesting. I mean, you know, We Are the Ants is one of my favorite books of all time, and I feel like that entire book is like pondering the reason for our existence. So I really like that kind of talk in books. I just find it to be really thought-provoking. I kind of like this idea, like it was just brought up in the last chapter that I listened to, and they were saying how freedom of speech and traditional family values are people's excuses to be racist, and like just because something has always been that way doesn't mean it's not time for change. I just noticed too, like I don't know why I didn't notice before, but the audiobook that I'm listening to is this weird white cover. On the cover it says white isn't just a color. Like that's what it says on here. So I'm like, oh my god, like maybe this book is gonna have even more to do with race than I was thinking it would, which like honestly I'm here for. I'm feeling like it's adding so much depth to this book, and I feel like this is exactly the kind of young adult book that I really enjoy. And it's been so long since I've read a young adult book that has made me like feel like this. Like I really like it. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited because I literally had no idea what to expect with this book, and I honestly wasn't sure if I was gonna like it, but I'm really enjoying it. So I'm gonna listen to it on the way to work right now and some more today, and yeah, I'll keep you updated.
Marla is the Grim Reaper. By tomorrow, it will be noticeable wearing that dress. When she gets to
Hello. So it is now 11 o'clock at night, But today I did get the chance to listen to quite a bit of this audiobook, and I'm now 82% of the way through it, and I only have about an hour and 45 minutes left. I'm still really enjoying this. I'm still really surprised by how much I'm enjoying this. I feel like this is a story that has so many layers to it, and on the surface it doesn't seem like it's much, but I feel like the whole like dig, like the whole idea of like this the book title and everything, it's kind of like a metaphor, right, for like digging deeper into yourself. A lot of the older generation within this book versus the younger generation and how like their mindset is and the way they think about things. There's a lot of different quotes about how like growing up ruins everything. There's also just some really great quotes and like commentary about what it's like to grow up without knowing who one of your parents are, because in this book one of our characters doesn't know who his dad is, and he's always lived his whole life like not like feeling like he didn't truly understand himself because he doesn't know where he comes from. And he has these great like quotes that I wrote down, like, safety is a lie, I'm floating in space with no tether, I'm underground and existence is pointless until I find the right roots to the right plant. So beautiful. Like, this book is just written in such a way that's like, it's so unique, because some of it feels more like your typical like young adult kind of like conversations and character moments, and then some of it just feels so deep. I can't wait to see where it goes. Like, I kind of feel like something more is happening in this book than what it's letting on, and so I'm really curious to see where it's gonna go. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm just gonna curl up in bed for the rest of the night and finish listening to this on audio. Hello, it is the next morning, and last night I finished reading Dig, and this book, honestly, it was one of the most unique, strange novels that I've ever read. Like, of course it is, right? Because it's one of Kayla's favorites, so of course it's very strange and unique. But I really loved this. Like, this really surprised me. I had no idea what this book was going to be about going into it, so I think I had very like little to no expectations. I really loved all of the characters. Like, even though I didn't even know the characters' names for like 95% of the book, I still just really connected with these characters, and I really felt like the grief and the loneliness and all the different things that they were feeling in this book. Like, I could really feel that through the writing. I really love in young adult novels where we explore like dysfunctional families and where there's just really great coming of age stories. Like, coming of age is always one of my favorite things to read about, and this book had 5 different coming of age stories for like all the different teen characters in this book. I think too, this book really dives deep into this like small town racism and white supremacy in America, and I just really loved the way that this book just specifically calls out certain things that are wrong, and like the way like the older generation just kind of hangs on to these ideas. There's this one quote that I saw in someone else's Goodreads review that I thought was really great, because they said, I mean, white isn't just a color, and maybe that's the problem for them. White is a passport, it's a ticket. The world is a white amusement park, and your white skin buys you into it. A woman in economy argued with me about this once. She said, I've heard this idea and it makes me uncomfortable. It probably should. And I just thought that was like a really intense quote, and like really accurate too. I think too, it was especially horrifying that in the author's note of this book, she said one of these things that was in this book was inspired by like a real life thing that she experienced, and I'm like, that is freaking terrifying. And the fact that that's the world we live in, it's just, it's so shitty. But this book made for a really great story. I was really impressed by it. I think I'm probably gonna give it like 4 out of 5 stars. But yeah, I'm really glad to have read it, because honestly, if it wasn't for Kayla, I don't know if I ever would have picked this book up. And I'm definitely interested in reading more from A.S. King now, because this is my first A.S. King book, and I just really love her writing. Like, it's so different from anything that I've ever read before. So I wanted to update you that last night I started the audiobook for We Ride Upon Sticks, because I was going to just read it physically, but when I started reading it physically, I realized that the writing is so dense that I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna need the audiobook to get through this. So I just went ahead and downloaded the audiobook off of Libro last night, and I got 20% of the way through it last night. And so far, I don't really have any feelings about this book. Like, it's definitely a lot more about the sport than I thought it would be. Like, all of these girls are on like a field hockey team. Something that I do like about it is that it takes place during the 80s, so there's like a lot of 80s references so far. Besides that, like, I don't really feel anything towards the characters yet, and I feel like there's so many characters that I'm like trying to keep them all straight in my head. Like, yeah, it's alright so far, but I have a few different like groceries and things I need to do today, so while I'm out and about today, I think I'm just gonna listen to the audiobook the whole day, and I have about 4.5 hours left of the audiobook at the speed that I'm listening to it, so hopefully I can get through a good chunk of this today. 2 o'clock now, and I've been listening to We Ride Upon Sticks all morning, and I'm now 54% of the way through the audiobook. I've just been powering through it, and I haven't been able to check yet in the physical copy where I'm actually at, but so far I'm still just thinking it's okay. They kind of got into some of the stuff about like the witch stuff and like the Salem witch trials and all that, but I think so far I was expecting it to be a lot more strange than it is, because like so far it just kind of feels like a contemporary book, like a young adult contemporary so far. There was some interesting commentary from one of the girls on this team who's black and kind of like her struggles with being black in the 80s. Besides that, like, I don't know, I'm still not really connecting with it very much. So far I expected it to be a little bit more like, not like creepy, but just like more about the witch stuff and not so much about the sport. Like, I feel like so much of this book is just about their sport, which is fine. It's just not exactly what I was expecting. Hello, it is quite a bit later in the night. It's about 10 o'clock, but I did want to let you know that earlier I finished listening to the audio for We Ride Upon Sticks. I'm having trouble like grasping my thoughts on this book, so I was reading a lot of different Goodreads reviews to try and like help me narrow down how I felt about it. A lot of my friends are in this book club called Stacks of Strange, and they just did a live show actually talking about this book a couple days ago. So I was watching the live show, and they pretty much all felt the same way about it as I did. And that is that I just feel like this book wasn't really for me. I can definitely appreciate what this book is and what this book was trying to do, and I do think there's a specific audience that would really enjoy this book, particularly people that know a lot about witchcraft or people that know a lot specifically about the witch trials in Salem, and then also people who are big fans of field hockey as a sport I think would really enjoy this. But I don't know, this book just didn't really do it for me. I found myself pretty bored throughout the entire time that I was reading this, and I don't know if it's because I just expected a little bit more out of the story. I thought there would be more weirdness in the story, and it just never quite went where I was expecting it to go. I do really appreciate the 80s vibes in this book. I thought the 80s vibes were so fun, and I do love cast of characters. Like, there's a lot of queer characters in this book. There's a lot of like social commentary on what it's like to be a person of color in the 80s, and there's also social commentary on like sexual abuse and feminism and what it's like to be a woman in the 80s. And you know, there's a lot of great social commentary and things happening in this book, which I do really appreciate. There was this really great quote that I wanted to share that I really liked that said, "To be anything but kind in the face of male desire was dangerous. Nobody had to teach us this lesson. It was just something we knew from the earliest days on the playground." But I do feel like this writing was so incredibly dense. Like, I feel like if I didn't have the audiobook, I probably would have DNF'd this book pretty early on, because it is so hard, at least for me personally, to get through this, because these paragraphs are just like dense and they're so wordy. I hate using that phrase, but it's very wordy. It's very wordy. And luckily with the audiobook, it didn't feel like too intense, but when I was reading along physically while listening to the audiobook, I was like, wow, these paragraphs are just so dense, and the writing style just didn't really work for me, because it took me a while to figure out what was going on. But it's like this author is writing in the point of view of we, and it's like the whole team's perspective, which was kind of like confusing for my brain to like wrap around at times, and so I just didn't really connect with the writing style, and I just felt like this book just needed something, you know, it just needed something more. It was just a little bit boring for me. I guess that's all I really have to say about this. Like, it's not a bad book by any means, it's just definitely not my thing personally. And I think next up I'm going to start Watch Over Me by Nina Lacour. It's like surprisingly short. Like, this book is so small and so cute, and so it's only 10:30 at night right now, so I'm hoping I can get a decent chunk of this done tonight, and I will update you with thoughts as I go.
I was never the one to write up a song for just anyone. I was always the one to find myself lost in old conversations. Cause I've always been told that things will unfold if you keep on waiting. But then you came along and proved me all wrong. I was so mistaken. Cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby.
It's the next morning and I'm on the way to work, but I wanted to let you know that last night I got a good chunk into this book. I got 125 pages into Watch Over Me, and this book, it just like reads so easy. Like, it's just so easy to get into. It's definitely my favorite thing that I think that I've read so far for this video, because I feel like this is one that I definitely might have picked up on my own. I really had no idea what to expect going into this book. Like, I had no expectations and I totally forgot what this book was even about. But this book is like a young adult, hard-hitting contemporary, and it deals with kind of talking about like mental health and also like ghosts. This book takes place with this young girl named Mila, or is it Mila? I don't know. But she gets this job to work at this farm with all these other kids. It's really cool because this farm is like on this northern coastal California town, and it's just so atmospheric of this town. Like, I feel like I'm like on the freaking beach while I'm reading this, which I really like. Then it's kind of cool because there are these like ghosts that she can like see on the farm, and it's like spooky, but it's also kind of just like beautiful. Like, I don't know, the vibe is just really interesting, and I don't think I've ever read anything quite like this, but I'm like kind of obsessed with it. I love her relationship with this one kid named Lee. It's just like the cutest and softest thing that I've ever seen, and my heart is just like dying because they're so cute. I would love to finish this tonight because I'm really enjoying it, and it's like so freaking good. It's so beautiful.
So they couldn't fucking call for help. That's just really drive that one. That's just.
Hello, what's poppin'? I just wanted to let you know that I am home. It is almost midnight and I am planning on staying up and finishing this book because I just ate a ton of cookies. I need to like take a minute to let that digest before I just fall right to bed, so I think I'm gonna stay up and try to finish this book tonight. I also wanted to let you know that I wasn't originally planning on reading this for this video because I had put this audiobook on hold at my library, and it said I wasn't going to get it for like 4 to 6 weeks at the beginning of this month, so I thought like I wasn't going to be able to read this. But I just got the audiobook checked out from my library, and the book is Split Tooth. This is one that I was super intrigued by because this one was also in Kayla's top 10 of 2020 video. I'm only 21% into the audiobook. It's only about like a 5-hour long audiobook, and I've already got to say this is one of the most unique experiences that I've ever had with an audiobook. And I was almost confused on the genre because I was feeling like it was going to be like a horror novel or something with the way that this audiobook is, but I was looking more on Goodreads, and a lot of people are saying that it's a blend of fiction and non-fiction and memoir and magical realism. So this book is like very inspired by this author's life, I'm assuming, and it's cool because the audiobook is actually narrated by the author, which I think is always really awesome whenever the authors narrate their own audiobooks. But it's basically this story of this young girl growing up in the 1970s, and there's already a lot of different like feminist themes and feminist messages that are just like sneaking through in the writing, and I really enjoy that. But also this audiobook is so strange because pretty often in this audiobook this girl, like the narrator, will be making some like really strange sounds. Like, she kind of sounds like she's like growling, or like she sounds like a wolf or something. Like, I don't even know how to explain this to you. I'll just have to insert clips here of what the audiobook actually sounds like so you can get a gist of what I'm talking about. The audiobook also includes like clips of her like singing. I mean, I'm only 20% into the audiobook and I've already experienced so many things with this audiobook, and I just think it's such an interesting listening experience. I don't know if I'm supposed to be creeped out by the like grunting sounds in this book, but I kind of am. It's kind of making me feel like it's a horror novel, and I'm very like disturbed by it, but I'm also like fascinated. I just like don't know what to expect with this book, honestly, but I'm kind of enjoying it. Like, I'm just here for the ride. So I just wanted to let you know that I started listening to that, and so far it's been a wild time, but I think I'm gonna put the audiobook aside for tonight and just try to focus on finishing Watch Over Me. Oh my gosh, how funny. This character just mentioned that she bought the novel Rebecca, and that's so ironic because I'm planning on reading that after this reading vlog. I'm planning on reading Rebecca for the first time. How ironic. Sorry, there's loud construction noise out here on the patio, and that's why I never film outside, even though I would love to. There's always loud construction, but anyways, I did get up to page 209 last night, so I almost got done with it. I have like 50 pages left, and I'm still really enjoying this. I kind of love the fact that this is young adult, but it doesn't really read like young adult. I mean, our main character that we're following is about like 18, 19-ish years old, because she just got done with like high school and everything. But I just like that this is reading more like, it just feels like she's older for some reason. Like, it just doesn't read like young adult to me, so I really actually like that about this. And then I know this is probably because I read a lot of horror and a lot of thrillers, but I feel like the beginning of this book is just the perfect setup for a horror novel. Like, if this was a horror book, it would totally make sense to me. Like, I feel like this could go into like a really dark place, and I know that it's not going in that direction, so I'm trying to like adjust my expectations, but I just feel like this is the perfect setup for a really good horror story. This story is really beautiful, and it's actually really touching, and I keep expecting it to like go into a dark like horror route just because I feel like it would make such a cool premise for a horror story. But it isn't going in that direction, but it's actually just really beautiful and makes you think a lot about like mental illness and like PTSD and how the trauma that people go through really like affects them for the rest of their lives. I'm really enjoying it. It's really good.
Sweet baby, I was never the one to give up the ghost. No, I was so stuck. I kept on playing my part, wanted to give up cause nothing was changing.
Hello, it is later in the afternoon and I'm filming outside again because it's just so nice out today, and I'm like, why not? And the lighting in the apartment is just terrible. But I wanted to let you know that I just finished reading Watch Over Me, and I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was really beautiful and really well done. It's written in such a beautiful and poetic and like lyrical way, and you really feel the grief and the trauma that these characters have been through, and I just feel like this was handled in such a beautiful way. I don't think I've ever read anything quite like this, and I know I keep saying that about like every single book that I'm reading for this video, but it's so true. Like, all of these books have been so unique and so different, but I just really loved the vibes and the atmosphere in this book. I mean, I feel like it could have been even better as a horror novel. Like, I was just waiting for it to get dark and to get like really intense. It never quite got there, but it's just like a beautiful story. And like, if you just want to read about a story that takes place mostly on this like freaking beautiful ass beach in Northern California, and there's like ghosts and stuff, and there's like characters that are dealing with their own personal trauma, then like, this is the book for you. I do think I'm going to end up giving this book around a 4-star. I still need to think about it a little bit more, but I really enjoyed this one, and I'm really glad that I actually read this book physically because I love the size of this book. It's like so small and so cute, and like low-key, I kind of wish more books came in this size. Like, I know it's such a shallow thing to like care about the size of the book, but I just it's just so cute and small.
but with you it's so clear, and now that you're here I see colors in every spectrum. Guess I finally learned my lesson, cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever, and I feel so free. Oh my sweet baby. Myself, and I'm thinking out loud.
Hello. I just finished listening to the audiobook for Split Tooth. I kind of had a lazy day today. Like, I wasn't really able to like focus on anything that I was reading physically, so I just decided to like kick back and just listen to this audio for a good chunk of the day. It wasn't even that long of an audiobook, but I have no idea what I just read. This was such a strange experience. I will say I think I enjoyed the beginning more than I enjoyed the rest of it, because in the beginning I was like, wow, this is really unique and really interesting, and I've never listened to an audiobook like this before. I mean, you heard those clips that I played earlier in this. Like, it is just very strange because she literally makes these different kinds of sounds at the end of like every single chapter, and it just got to the point where I was getting frustrated. And also, there's a lot of really descriptive, kind of provocative and like sexual scenes that just made me so uncomfortable to listen to. It's weird because this book isn't a horror book, so I feel like it's not supposed to make you feel uncomfortable or the way that I was feeling. Maybe it is, like I don't really know what this book's intent is to make you feel. This book is so difficult for me to rate because I really do appreciate the story, and I feel like this is a story that I really have to like think about and try to dissect. And I do think that the writing is beautiful, and I do understand why Kayla would love this. Like this definitely seems like something like Kayla would really love. I've noticed that all these books that I've been reading this week just have this really beautiful lyrical writing style. I just feel like the writing style in this book didn't really work for me, but I can still acknowledge that it's like a really beautiful writing style. I feel like I'm gonna have to give this one somewhere around a 3-star because I did enjoy some of it, and then some of it kind of just went way over my head and I was just uncomfortable. The #1 strangest audiobook that I've ever listened to. Like this audiobook is a freaking experience. It's a trip. I did want to let you know too that earlier tonight I did get the chance to start Away, like just barely. I only read like the first 2 chapters. I'm only on page 18 because, as I said, I just couldn't focus today. Like I wanted to get a good chunk of this book done this morning, but it was just one of those days where like I could not focus on the book that I was trying to read, so that's why I wanted to do the audiobook instead. And so far I'm actually really enjoying this. It's following this young girl named Ellie, and she's like hanging out with her dog who has been dead for a couple of years, but I'm assuming she like brought him back to life or something. The dog starts like freaking out, and so she thinks that something's wrong with her parents because I guess the last time that this dog like freaked out like that, her grandpa was dying or something. So I think the dog kind of has some kind of ability to like know when their loved ones are in danger. And so she takes her bike down to the local movie theater where her parents are at just to make sure that they're okay. But then they get a phone call from one of their cousins, and they find out that one of their cousins has been in a serious car accident and he's in very critical condition and that it doesn't look very good. And she just says, if he dies, I can. And they're like, no. And they're like, you must never do that. And they said, human ghosts are terrible things. And like, bitch, what? That was all just like in the first chapter. I'm really excited about this. I mean, just that first chapter alone was reminding me so much of like Pet Sematary vibes and like the Winter People vibes. I mean, the fact that this book also has ghosts in it, like I didn't intentionally pick 2 books for this reading vlog that would have ghosts in it, but like I'm here for this. Hello there. So since I have last updated you, I've gotten up to page 146. I am actually really enjoying this, like even more than I was expecting to. Like I know I put this book in the #1 spot, so I was already expecting to really love this book, but I'm enjoying it even more than I thought I would. I also started taking notes in my journal on like all the different character names and stuff so I could keep them straight in my head, but I feel like this is exactly the kind of fantasy that I enjoy. I know I just recently said in a video that I just uploaded about how I really don't like fantasy and it's a genre that I really don't vibe with, but I feel like this particular kind of fantasy is exactly the kind of fantasy that I do enjoy. This is like very subtle fantasy in my opinion. It feels almost more like magical realism, and it's because it takes place mostly in our world. It just has some little like magical elements involved. I mean, the fact that our main character Ellie can bring things from the dead back to life, like she has that ability, it's almost like a superpower. And then there's also like vampires in this book, and just like the talk about the vampires and like how it works in their society, like it's just so cool. And there's like cursed and evil scarecrows. Like what the heck? I guess I like the idea of like curses and like just like slightly magical things like that. But yeah, so far I really love Ellie's character. I love her relationship with her dad. I love her friendship with this guy Jay. Something that I really do like about this book too, and why I think I'm so invested, is because there's kind of a mystery happening in the plot. Because as I mentioned in the first clip, her cousin Trevor dies at the start of this book, and it's because he was in a really bad car accident. But her family feels like there might be something more serious going on with his death, and like there's a mystery as to like why he was on the road that he was on, and like how did this even happen. And so I really like that Ellie is kind of doing some investigation into his death and trying to figure out what actually happened to her cousin. I love that Ellie said that she wants to go to college to become a paranormal investigator. Like what the heck, it's just so cool. And I guess I like that this is like really light fantasy, and it's just kind of like paranormal and strange, and it has some like magical realism, and that's about as fantasy as it gets, at least so far. But I'm like really enjoying this. I really love the writing. I love Ellie's character. I love the family. Tinky, what are you doing? What are you doing? You eating my shoes, Tinky? He was trying to eat my shoes. Don't eat my shoes, Tinky. These are mine. Nachos. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Tinky. You're so silly, Tinky. Hello, good morning. It's the next day, and I wanted to let you know that last night I got up to page 209, and I'm still really enjoying this. I still stand by everything that I said in the other clip, and I like that I'm kind of just like taking my time with this and just enjoying it. I also got to a scene where Ellie kind of like confirmed her asexuality, because I had heard that this book has an asexual main character, but I was wondering if we were ever going to get like confirmation on that, because she just said a couple things that kind of like made me feel like she might be asexual, because she talked about how she doesn't have any interest in having children or ever getting married, and not that that's something that like every asexual person doesn't want, but it just made me feel like, okay, maybe she is. But then we finally got confirmation, like it was specifically brought up. I'm pretty happy about that, because I just want to read about more asexual representation in books, just because I feel like it's so important and it's so underrepresented. Like I can only think of a handful of books off the top of my head that even talk about asexuality at all. So I'm excited to see if there's anything more to that, or even if not, like I just think it's like really awesome that the main character is asexual. Like that is pretty cool. I'm planning on trying to finish this book today. I just really want to see where the story goes and read the rest of it. Last night I didn't end up actually finishing it. I was so tired last night. I don't know why, but I got up to page 264, so I have like a little bit less than 100 pages left, so I'm planning on finishing it this afternoon. There was, for lack of a better word, I mean, there was a really good plot twist in the plot that just happened that I wasn't expecting. I think it's really cool. I wasn't thinking it was gonna, I mean, you know, this whole thing has been kind of revolving around this mystery, so I didn't know if it was gonna get like suspenseful, or like I didn't really know what to expect from the plot of this book, but it's getting pretty suspenseful, and I'm like, I'm enjoying where this is going, you know, like it's building up quite the mystery and quite the like intrigue. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm gonna try to finish it like right now this afternoon. I did want to show you, I just got a package from Penguin Random House, and I don't know what it is. I remember choosing something from their partner list like a while ago, but I don't remember what I chose. Oh shit. This is Goblin by Josh Malerman, and this one is a novel in 6 novellas. This is exciting. I was wondering if Kayla like knows about this, because I feel like this would be something she would really like, because it's like short stories and it's Josh Malerman. So I am very excited to read this one. What the heck? I forgot about this. I think Josh Malerman is really good at writing, you know, novellas. Like A House at the Bottom of a Lake is one of my favorite books. So yeah, very excited for this one. Thank you so much to Penguin Random House. What the heck? Let's finish this book. So I posted a picture of this book this morning, and I said it's the last book for my secret TBR. Any guesses what it is? Dude, there's so many comments of people being like, reading Kayla's favorites, reading Kayla's favorites, Kayla's favorites. Like, what the heck? I didn't think it would be this obvious. Ooh, that's cool. Illustrated books, animals on the cover, indigenous authors. These are all cool, but oh my god, so many people guessed that it's Kayla's favorites. This is so funny. Wow. I didn't think I was, you know, this obvious, but I guess I am.
I feel so free. I'm a sweet baby.
It's been about an hour, but I finished reading A Lot's Away. I really enjoyed this book. Like, this book really surprised me. I do think I'm gonna give it probably like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Like, it wasn't a perfect book for me, but the ending was pretty epic. Like, it was pretty surprising. I almost cried. Like, I was like this close to crying. And I just felt really connected to this main character, Ellie, and her friend Jay, and like her family, and like the situation and everything that was happening. I just felt so much for them. And I also appreciated the mystery and the suspense and trying to figure out like what the fuck was happening. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty much a wrap on this video. I read some really great books in this video, and I feel like this is why I like reading Kayla's favorite books, because I feel like in these videos she always has me picking up books that I probably would have never personally picked up for myself. I feel like the book that I'm personally most surprised by out of all of the books that I read for this video is Dig by A.S. King, just because I thought for sure that that book wasn't going to be my thing, and that one actually ended up being one of my favorites that I read for this video. So I think my final ranking, because I said at the beginning of the video I predicted my rankings, but now for like my final ranking, I do think A Lot's Away would be my number one, just because this book was everything. It really did mean a whole lot to me, and I just connected so much with this family and these characters. And then in second place, I would have to put Dig by A.S. King. I really enjoyed this book a lot more than I thought I would, and I've been thinking about this book a lot since I read it, so amazing. And then in third place, we have Watch Over Me. I really enjoyed this book. It was really something unique and special, although I do think it would have been even better if it was a horror novel. And then in fourth place, I'm gonna put Split Tooth. This book was very strange, very unique, and one of the most strange audiobook experiences that I've ever had, but it's still going to be very memorable for me, and I don't think this is one that I'm going to be forgetting anytime soon. And then shockingly in last place, I have to put We Ride Upon Sticks. I do understand why Kayla loves this book, and I can totally see why so many different people could love this book. It just wasn't my thing personally, but that doesn't mean this is a bad story at all. Like, it just was not my thing, but I can totally see why other people would enjoy this. So yeah, that is a wrap on this video, and you know, as I said, I'm so excited to have finally done this video again. I've been wanting to do this video for a few months now, and Kayla is just one of my favorite creators to watch online and one of my favorite humans, and I just really admire her and respect her as another YouTuber. So I had a really great time with this video. Let me know if you read any of these books that I read in this video. What are your thoughts on them? What do you think about them? And thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye!